Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Conversations in Pop Culture, where I have with me cosplayer Jezza Twisted Cosplay. And before I welcome you to the show, I have to mention my sponsor. It's my class, and I'm going to put the link up in 1 second, everybody, but it's called Comic Book Investing 101 on OnlyFans. And if you actually sign up right now using the link I'm about to put up, you get 20 days for free, and new classes are being added every single Friday. So you could try before you buy. And if you want to learn how to invest in comic books and not be poor, well, this is the opportunity to do so. So welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. Appreciate being here. It really does. Uh,
Yeah, no, I
uh,
am I am very excited because for those who can't tell, you have an accent and you're from
yeah,
the land down under. I think is the
yeah,
best way how to put it right there from
de-
Australia. So
definitely.
I'm very excited for this. And some people might know you, some people might not know you. So I think the best place to start is how did you get into cosplay?
Thanks for having me on the show, mate. But first of all, I will say that it's a real good honor to be here on the podcast, and I'm really glad to finally get to do one of these. So it's gone great. Um, and how I got into cosplay? Well, a few years ago, I was actually a struggling actor, believe it or not. And acting is just a struggle down here a lot more than it is over in the States, I will say that. And if you're not the right look, they just don't. It just you never get cast for anything. I was doing like small ads, TV shows, theatre, and then I had a mate of mine say, "Oh, you've got a great face to cover up. Maybe you should do some like costumes." And I'm like, "Oh, I appreciate that." But then, but then he took me to a convention here, which we've got. It's called Supernova, and that's our big one. That's kind of like our Comic Con here. And so I went there just one day, just to have a look, and I saw people in all these costumes, and I just thought to myself, this is phenomenal. No one's caring what anyone's looking like. No one cares about whether how much talent's behind it because it's their effort putting in, and that's what makes them fall in love with what they're doing. And then I thought to myself, you know what? One day I'll give it a go. And then that happened about a year later. We had a mate of mine go, I'm going to Supernova. I need you to dress up. So my first costume was this twisted version of the Red Hood because I've always been a big fan of the Red Hood. And and I did a Joker twist on it. And then when people started realizing, oh wait, if you can put your own twist on things, that could be your own style. And that's where I got the idea of Jezza's Twisted Cosplay. So yeah, and now I've started doing my own versions, as you can see in the background. Like I've got my Mandalorian, but that's with a Death Stranding twist from the video game. So it's got like little BB on the front, and then as you can also see, I've got like man, my Boba Fett, but it's my Knight Boba Fett, and I've just been non-stop, I guess, going through the motions of what a cosplayer is, and still a lot more to learn. So let's see how we go.
Well, we answered all my questions, so we can all go home now. No,
Oh,
no,
okay.
no. So I want to talk about your first one a little bit because we got Red Hood, and then we have
Yes.
that mask, but there's the Joker twist to it. There's a Jason Todd element to it as well, and we
Yeah.
kind of got, I guess, Joker's chest plate is a little bit more Batman-ish in
Yeah.
green paint. So I'm just curious how you even came up with the concept to infuse all three of those characters into it for starters.
Well, when I was playing, because I was originally, I came up with the idea when I was playing Arkham Knight, the video game, and I noticed that Jason Todd, he had that sprayed paint version of his his Robin symbol, but it looked more like a Batman like homage. And my wife always told me that I'm more of a Joker, so she she said, "Why don't you put a Joker twist to it?" And I'm like, you know what? That's a fantastic idea. Why not? So I did that, and yeah, came across, and no, no, yeah, yeah, that's exactly what happened. And then I had a mate of mine. He made the mask for me, and then he was telling me this stuff. I'm like, oh, sweet, fantastic, this is great. Next thing I know, I'm getting all these mixes up and these workarounds, and Lo and behold, like things change, and then I end up seeing this really good version of a graffitied plate, and I was like, that is what I could do for the Batman. I'll spray it across like a graffiti plate. And then I couldn't find the right colors for it, so I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to put Joker in there instead. So I mixed it up, and I loved every second of it. So yeah. And that's basically how it was, is because I couldn't find the right colors, I decided to mix it up.
So you pulled a Hulk was supposed to be gray, and then mixed
Yeah,
up
it
the
was meant to
colors.
be grey. And I was like, oh, grey, green, I can work with it. It's fine.
It's what we call a happy accident. Let's leave it at that right there.
It was.
So what is that like? Because you have the mask on, and once you have Red Hood's mask on, you really can't see the Joker element to it. So what
Yeah.
is that like? Because I would imagine that people are taking a photo of you. They're like, "Oh, this is kind of a cool, twisted version of Red Hood." And then what happens after the photo, and then somebody wants to talk to you, and then you take off the mask because there's a shock value there.
It is. It threw a lot of people off. I will say this, because I've only got a couple of photos where I'm just like this big happy smile going, and people are like, oh yeah, that's okay, that's fun, that's fun. And then I'll get down to these kids, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. They're getting creeped out because I've taken off my mask, and they can't handle this Joker smiling in their face. So it was a big shock value. But I did have a lot of people ask why it wasn't red across my chest, and they were taking these photos. So I pulled them up on it, and I said to them, have a look at what is it? Let me just have a look to make sure everything's going okay. So I take off the helmet to see, and I'd look up and I'd give them like that little cheeky, oh, that's right, I'm the Joker underneath here. And they would, it was funny to see their reactions, I will say that.
So when that happens, because I think this is funny, I'm a little bit fucked up in the head. I like mind with people. People who know me know that I love messing with my friends that way. And so what was that like? Because they're taking a picture of you and they think you're Red Hood, and then you reveal, and then do they then they oh I get it now? Is it that
Yeah.
type of moment, or is it like you pulled one fast, or what is that at a con? Because I would imagine that there's two reactions or three reactions that could happen.
There really was. There was two different reactions. There was the whole, oh my god, you pulled the fast one on me. I didn't see that coming, so I've got that shock value. And I had a couple of people like, can I take photos of you as the Joker now, or just I'm gonna walk away because you've given me that scare. But then I had the other half of the people where I take off the mask and they see the Joker and they're like, that is brilliant. We should have thought of that. And I'm just there like, oh, I think I'm going well for my first cosplay. This is working.
So when somebody says, or they first off, when somebody takes a picture of you as Red Hood, and they're a little bit
Yes.
confused, but they still like it, and then
Mm.
you take off the mask, and then you're the Joker, and then somebody says that's brilliant. How does that make you feel, considering this was your first one? Because that's kind of a weird scenario. Most people's first cosplay, I don't want to say it meanly, and it's gonna sound messed up, but it usually sucks the first one you do. Usually, it's very rare that somebody has their best idea in anything the first round they do something. So, what is that like to get that instant reaffirmation or reconfirming it and affirming and verification is the word I'm looking for here.
I think that's what it was. Is like it was reassuring to know that my first cosplay, people didn't judge me. They didn't judge me with a bad intention. They saw it and they went, "This guy's doing something good," and it just made me realize how much that support you have in that community and how much people actually love your work and do what you got to do. And I just thought to myself, this is going great. I can't believe people actually like what I'm doing, and it made me do my next one after that, and it pushed me to do my next one. And I was like, you got to be upping your game now, Jeremy. You can't just stop here and assume that people are only gonna like this one cosplay. Now you've got to mix it up with variety. But it did give me that sense of satisfaction knowing, wow, I did something, it pulled off, and people actually liked it, and it makes me feel good that they actually liked it, because when I used to do my acting, it was a different story where the director would just pull you aside and be like, "Hey, mate, you know that acting was a little shit. Do you reckon you could fix it up a little bit?" I'm like, "Yep, fair enough. Okay, I'll do better next time, sir." But it was great to know that on my first try, I got that good, warm support that people always want. So it made me go, "Yep, I can do more. I can do better." So it was great.
And just so we're perfectly clear, I don't mean to anybody whose first cosplay it sucks. I'm saying this with love. I'm just giving it to you as a real person that most people's we as in the cosplay community, and I enjoy cosplay. I tried it. It's not for me for a variety of reasons. For a variety of reasons that we're not going to get into. I'm just going to leave it at that. But I got nothing against it, but the cosplay community is very warm, and when I say
Yeah,
something sucks, I mean it's you go up because usually your first idea isn't the best one. In your case,
that's
it
it.
was great, and now you're just gonna go downhill. Clearly,
Oh, yeah, true, true. That's it. I'm only going downhill from now on. So, I get nothing but negative comments. Why can't you do something better?
so before we talk about your next cosplays, and we might be going slightly out of order, but I like to stay with themes, and we're gonna talk about another DC cosplay in a minute here or so. I do want to talk a little bit of the inside baseball. So I am curious where a lot of your cosplay ideas come from and what inspires you and where do you just throw an idea out there and then how does that process start on the creation side?
Well, for an idea for a cosplay, for me, it comes down to like, essentially, it comes down to the themes in my life, because a lot of a lot of time growing up, I consider myself, and everybody else in my family, my friends, would always consider me the biggest nerd in the world. I know my comics, I know my movies, I know all of this, and for me, it was always a good escape. Just I could live in these fantasies and be happy where I am. And when I come up with my next concepts, I'm always following these mix-ups where if I see a good, sometimes I'll just be scrolling through Instagram, Facebook, whatever, and I'll see this concept of this middle-aged, medieval-aged, Star Wars character, or like my Boba Fett there or whatnot, and these things catch my eye, and I just think to myself, no one's doing this. No, people draw it, but no one does it. So what if I do this and escape into these characters? And my inspiration comes down to you'll notice there's a consistent theme with how I do stuff, whether it's twisted or not, is it always comes down to a self-identity, because a lot of people aren't just one person. They're a mix of multiple. And I like to think of myself as someone who is using his cosplay to capture his own identity, someone who loves his fantasy, someone who could love to be a hero, an outlaw. And I get inspired. I get inspired every day when I go outside, when I play a video game, when I read a book. I just find these interesting, and I love it. And it's nothing I never want to stop doing, essentially.
That's such an actor thing to say. It really is. I'm going to call like I see it.
I'm sorry. Okay, I've got a script right here, and I knew you were going to read it, so it's okay.
It's such an actor answer too. It's so
I can't
scripted.
switch it off. I'm sorry.
It's so scripted, and it makes it worse because of your accent. Now all I want to do is believe everything you're saying is so from the heart too.
It is from the heart. That's the problem.
So So now that we have the entire script read for that answer, and it's clearly from the heart here. Now, once you have this idea, and now you want to express your identity into this character, I think it's the synopsis. How do you go about starting to even build that idea from just the idea and what you feel?
Could I just hold? Could I just hold you on there a second, mate? Sorry, I've got a little visitor here. Hold on. Hold on a second.
Just while we all wait, you might want to wait 20 seconds, 30 seconds as we're live here. Technical difficulties, and he's back. He's back.
Sorry about that. Sorry. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah. So
Sorry about that.
now that we've established what you are, and it's all from the heart, and that clearly this is a script, and you can't turn off the actor switch. Yeah. Once you have an idea and you see something for real, how do you go about to start building it? Because we're now taking an idea of what you see from the internet or in a book or even in a comic book, and you see something else. And then how do you start building it? Do you use references, sketches? Does somebody else sketch something out for you and give you a quick mock-up? Because that's what I'm curious about, is that creation process of an idea to something physical.
Yeah. Well, I use mainly... So there's templates that I use from Punish Prop, and Punish Prop is an American corporation, and they have these free templates, and these free templates are just phenomenal. They have the basis for like Mandalorians, normal helmets and stuff, and because I do a normal for like my Mandos right there.
Yeah.
I do a normal base Mandalorian helmet, and from there it's basically working from the head down. I figure out these issues, and then I start drawing in my sketchbook from head down. So it works out well, and frankly, it goes pretty phenomenal. And sorry, I've got a visitor here who wants to say hi. She's say hi.
Hi.
Yeah. Sorry, she can't accept that I'm on a call right now. But it goes really, really well when it comes to sketching it down, because I've got to sketch it down from the beginning, and then from the beginning I sketch it down. It starts from the head right down to the feet, but the problem that comes with that is I tend to avoid my feet the most, because my thighs keep changing all the time because I consistently go for runs, and then there'll be a week where I don't go for a run and I'll get too thick for whatever I'm doing. So I've got to consistently always change the measurements. So it's all good. And yeah, it just comes down to that. Oh, so it's pretty insane. I'm sorry, but I do have to hold for one more minute. I need to get her inside. Sorry about that. What are you doing to me? And I'm back again. Sorry.
So now this sort of brings up a really good question. Is that, and I want to talk about challenges, because obviously your body is changing, and even the creation process. So I don't think you're going to go create a Mando helmet, and I don't think most cosplayers are going to go sculpture a brand new helmet. But everything else you somewhat create. Just so everybody's clear on that. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that when we get down into the Mandalorian stuff and the Star Wars stuff. But I do want to talk about the challenges, because you're from the land down under, and it's very different than the States. It's very different than the UK. I know that much. And I think the United States has the most cosplayers just by nature because of the United States.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Even though the United States is smaller than China, we have more freedoms in the U.S. than they do in China by definition. Some animes aren't allowed
Oh,
in China.
definitely.
So, how do you balance and find materials? Because materials as cosplayers can be very expensive. Also, availability of
Mm,
materials can be beyond it difficult to find. And also, certain materials are more expensive than other materials. And then there's also the international issue where there's stuff that you can only get in America, or it's a lot more scarce than
yeah.
under. And so, how do you balance that? And also, when you're getting certain materials that are made in the US or they're made in the UK, to ship them to Australia is not cheap. And I know this because I run an eBay business and I don't ship outside of the US for that particular reason.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I guess the scarcity of the material is quite different. A lot of the I'm grateful for where I am essentially because I live in a rural area, so a very bushland area. But that also comes with like big warehouse facilities for like outdoors work and whatnot. So our companies like Mitre 10 or Bunnings here, they do like outdoor stuff for like PVC pipes using scarce materials there to like do home sealants and stuff. So I just use that to my own advantage in regards for okay, I can grab some PVC pipe, put a hot gun to it, bend it to what I need it to bend so it looks like a sword. And then I can add foam to it. And the good thing about being here in Australia is we've got our own company called Heroes Studio, and the Hero Studio Workshop is they're based mainly in Sydney, and I'm from Brisbane. So waiting, especially with how COVID's going lately, waiting period can be up to a couple of months. So I had to buy a lot of foam right at the beginning of the year in bulk. I'm still going through it, so I'm pretty happy with that. But I will say lately, especially how with COVID's going, it does make searching for these materials to use for my references a lot harder. And I have had to wait up to 6 to 8 months just for a jacket that I needed from the United States, uh, especially when it comes to these cosplays. And you got to work out your timing essentially as well. So I completely understand when it comes down to scarcities. But I will say that um, my resources right now are pretty good. I am one of the lucky ones. I will say that I've got a lot of I do have a lot of materials happening for me right now, so I am pretty happy. But,
And so I love operations and logistics just from a business standpoint. It's how I
yeah,
know how to do all of this, and I love that topic in particular in business. And it seems that now cosplayers, especially internationally, and I'm now getting back into interviewing a bunch of them more, and I'm sure this is going to come up a lot more, but it seems that you also figured out that you needed to buy a bunch of stuff ahead of time. And
yeah.
I'm curious, what is that like cost wise and making that expenditure? Because sometimes you have to spend money knowing that if you don't spend it now, it's going to be not twice as expensive. It's just going to take twice as long. And taking that risk and making
That's
those
it.
decisions because it's a time issue and it's a time over cost and having to fork out that money. So because that's a new challenge. Because I've interviewed cosplayers in the
Mm,
past and that hasn't been the case at all ever. And from
yeah,
my understanding with cosplay in general, probably in the last 30
yeah.
years, something like that hasn't come up. And so I'm curious how you're
No,
handling
I will.
the cost of all that and
Right.
making sure that that's kosher, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, I will say I will. I definitely will say that it. I complete like I get that some cosplayers didn't have the time or
Funds?
money to get to get the resources. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I was just making sure. I thought you said pardon. Uh, the I I will say that yeah, like in America, I know that most cosplayers there, they don't have to worry about as many resources because a lot of the big companies that support cosplayers and support them and sponsor them and whatnot, are giving them essentially the materials they need. Here in Australia, it's a different story altogether. We don't have as many corporations that sponsor us. The biggest one we got is, which is an international one, is Lumen's Workshop, and they do have their workshops here. Our resource, like buying ahead of schedule, because the moment my work went into lockdown, went into lockdown, and I knew I was going to be not working for the next 6 to 8 months. What am I going to do for the next 6 to 8 months? I could just focus on my cosplay, which I did. But I knew if I didn't, so I spent 3 weeks worth of my paycheck to buy the biggest bulk of foam, biggest bulk of glues, biggest bulk of clay foam, knives, paints, everything I could, knowing that it's going to be scarce by October. And I tried ordering the other day just to see if I could, and I was coming up with sold out, can't do it now, you won't get it till 2021. So I guess I did get lucky where I saw what was going to happen, and I took the advantage of knowing that it was going to happen. Yeah, best way to describe.
And do you think, because we're going to talk about COVID in a little bit, but do you think that this is going to continue? And do you have a sense of how long this is going to go forth? Because when you try to go and buy something, what is it telling you when as soon as you're going to get it? Because I'm just curious, because I'm in America, a lot of my audience is in America, and I don't know this situation, what it's like in America on the cosplay front, but obviously this is a real problem that's hitting people.
Yeah, it really is, and I like my thoughts and prayers go out to everybody that's been affected by it and whatnot. But when it comes to the conventions wise, for this year alone, we've had to cancel. Most
We're going
of
to
the
talk about that
conventions have
too.
been cancelled
Yeah, we're going to talk
from
about that too, but we
from
can talk
on.
about it now.
Yeah, yeah, and it does affect a lot of cosplayers because I know a lot of groups want to get together and just do cosplay for the sake of cosplay, but we can't. We can't really do it right now, and it does put a lot of pressure on us as people. Like, why do we keep doing it if nobody's going to really see what we're doing? But I figured the best way to keep doing it, the best thing to do, is keep doing it, because even though we can't go out to see it, people can still see us on social media. People know that we're still doing our work. People know that we are still making these costumes for your entertainment. And I think that's the best thing, is when people see these people who cosplay, they're just seeing someone who's basically filling a fantasy right now, and giving them just a little bit of, maybe I could do that one day. Yeah.
And to also just talk about this is that, and I'm curious on your levels, how are you doing with
Yes.
material and even the ordering and getting new materials in? Because I'm going to take a leap of faith. I mean, you must have ordered 6, 7 months ago worth of materials, if not later than that. And now we're heading into October. And obviously, in the US, COVID cases are now spiking up again. New York Comic Con was last
Yeah.
weekend. That was completely canceled. 2 months before that, San Diego was canceled. And so, I mean, those are indicators in my world. And what I know is that when cons are canceled, and then cons have been delayed for December, and those just got canceled maybe about a month ago. And so, I'm just curious, how are you doing with materials and even getting new materials or any inclination of that? Because I think that is so fascinating, because that's not even getting to a con. That's just costume building and cosplay building, and that's pre-con stuff. That's not even social media stuff. That's what do we do now?
Yeah.
We don't have materials is the question. I guess that's on everybody's mind.
No, that's completely like, that's a really good question. Like, my see, for me, you're right with the leap of faith. I bought all my costumes, materials for us about 8 months ago, in February here, because that's when we started having our lockdowns in about February, and I knew that like well, I'm not going to be able to hit these conventions because the last convention we had here was back in March, and we were meant to have three more conventions, and they've all been cancelled until late of 2021. And it's just a process of, I guess it's another thing that keeps us busy is we're not even doing it for social media anymore. We are just doing it to keep ourselves sane, keep ourselves busy. And I'm if you sit there and dwell, you're going to wonder you're going to sit there and dwell, and you're definitely going to wonder why do you keep doing it if no one's going to see it. And like I said before, I keep doing it because it's not about just me wanting to see it. I do it for people in my family. I do it because it's something I've always wanted to do, and it's something I love. And like now that I'm actually doing it, I can't see myself stopping because an epidemic has told me there are no more conventions for another year. So I'm just going to keep building, no matter what it is. I'm going to keep try and find these materials, no matter what I can. I've got the places around me to help me. I've got that support system here, which makes it a lot easier and a lot better for me, as opposed to like in America where there is people having scarce problems, where spikes are going up higher and whatnot. We have a lockdown system here that's just basically stopped everybody from going out in the street, where it's essentially a martial law without the army here. So,
Well, you
yeah,
try that in America, and you'll see what happens in Texas. You'll see what happens in Texas, and you'll see what happens not in Texas. Because I'm pretty sure in Texas it's going to be much more civil than in New York if you enforce that. I'm pretty sure about that
very
one.
true. Very true.
And don't quote me on that, anybody, but I'm pretty sure. There's just as many guns in Texas as there are in New York. I'm just saying in America. So going beyond that, and I do want to talk about your cosplays
Yep.
because they're a much happier topic. And we spoke about one of your DC cosplays. I want to speak about the other one, which is Green Lantern Samurai.
Yes.
And there's a lot of stuff going on in this one. So we obviously have Green Lantern as a samurai. And I think DC did this at one point. There must have been a Green Lantern Samurai in the DC comics.
From what, I tried looking up the references for it because I was watching Batman Ninja, the anime. And I was like, oh my god, that's just the best thing in the world. But why don't they have like a samurai Superman or a samurai Green Lantern or anything like that? And I was trying to find the references, and I know that there's got to be a picture out there of a Green Lantern samurai that's probably done 1,000 times better than what I did. But I loved Green Lantern's probably always been one of my favorite superheroes. It's just a simple fact that he may only have the ring, but it's the will behind that ring that holds you together, and I think that's a good character of a person. It's no matter what problem's there, if you've got the will to push through it, you will find a solution. And I've always admired that as a character. And at the time when I was watching the anime, I was like, I could totally do something like that. Let's hope I could pull it off. And this is how low budget I went. The entire costume was made from yoga mats. I made the whole thing from rolled up yoga mats. They were selling them for $1 down at my cheap shop, and I bought like 25. And at a time I did not know anything about painting, like properly, like priming, like putting the coat over it, seal it, and whatnot. So as I'm painting and putting this character together, where I'm painting black, where I'm painting green, the next morning I noticed that there was these flakes falling off the costume. And I was walking, and when I had it all done, I was walking around my convention, and people were brushing me, bumping into me as you normally would, but they would take flakes of black with them or take flakes of green with them. And by the end of the the end of the day, I wasn't Green Lantern anymore. I was blue, yellow, red, and pink Lantern. It was it was a fun experience building something like that because it was my first chance to actually work with foam and start molding a character like around my body and what could I do, because my previous one was just simply a jacket and a chest piece that I had picked up from a dirt bike store, and I was just molding myself around that. But this one, I had to mold it to my body and how it moved. So I realized halfway through building it that I couldn't sit down. I had to stand up this whole 9 hours walking around taking photos of people, and I realized that if I've got to start building costumes where I can start moving my abs, moving my stomach, because it's not going to go. I'm not going to go anywhere if I don't start putting mobility to these costumes. So my Green Lantern Samurai, I guess, was a real test of something I imagined to something I made come true, because it was all just about what I see in my head. I could do that right there. It's my first one that I didn't actually sketch down. So yeah.
And what is that like, learning that, oh, I need to build costumes that don't just look good, but are practical? Because that's something that I feel like a lot of people make mistakes on. And,
Oh, definitely.
cons are big. I've gone to New York Comic Con, I've gone to Awesome Con in DC, and that's a big con and a big convention center. And obviously, it's big enough for anybody not in cosplay to handle.
Yeah.
And I mean, I sit down, I grab my lunch, I grab at a table, and I'm super thrilled and all that fun stuff. But at the same time, I can't imagine not being able to sit down for 8 hours or 9 hours.
Uh,
People taking pictures of you and talking to you and also moving around. Like,
yeah.
so what was that like? Because obviously that is something that I think people forget, that, it still has to be functional.
Yeah, that's it. For me, that was the first case of me trying to. I guess that was my samurai was a big stroke, like straight to my ego, where I was like, oh, because I pulled off a really good one, that means I can pull off a really good second one, and not worry about momentum, not worry about mobility, not worry about like the weight of these things, and I it was a good kick in the ass that I needed to know that, wait, these costumes need to have this mobility. These costumes need to breathe, need to move, need to be functional. And it was a good I guess it was a good lesson to learn that if I'm going to start building better and start building more, I need to make things more practical and better, because I can't just go, oh, you know what? That's cool. I'll just dress in a tin can for the whole day, and it's
Isn't
fine.
it also isn't it also a lesson in, this doesn't need to look perfect and 100%
Ex-
perfect if it's
exactly.
functional, if you're not going to sweat like a monster in it. Hate to say this, but I'm sure you've seen it. There's a bunch of women who wear all these like skin tight latex suits, and you know it
All I can think, all
you sweat in that's not
Yeah,
something.
that's all I think. I'm like, God, how hot would it be, lad? They may be thin, but that is bloody hot. and I and I think that was a good thing, is where I just realized that my costumes from now on don't need to be 100% perfect. If I know what they are, people will know what they are, and I can start working with the mobility around it. Like I can start making a chest piece that's only covering up to my ribs, so I can move down and breathe. As long as I know what the rest of it is, everyone else will know what the rest of it is. And I needed to stop thinking, oh, everything needs to be 100%. 90% or even 80%. For me, that's if you can do that, you've got it. And
Also, you're a male cosplayer. So
yeah,
let's be realistic here. And I'm the first person to say this, is that at a con, it's a lot harder for male cosplayers than it is for female cosplayers, and it has nothing to do with skill set. It has to do with tits and ass.
Oh yes,
I mean,
but
let's call a spade a spade. I'm open about it.
I,
I said it. I just said it. It's true.
uh,
And if you don't believe
I
me, when you're listening, go on Instagram and look at, and also just go on Instagram and you'll see the difference between number of followers that a male cosplayer has and the number of followers a female cosplayer has. Look at the top male cosplayer right now and look at the top female cosplayer, and you'll see that there's probably about a 3 million plus difference of followers.
uh, I think it doesn't just come. I think it doesn't come down to the best words that people use, and I think that's still relevant today that people have been using for years, is sex sells. And and you get a lot of male cosplayers who will do what they can to try and like put that sexiness to it. But when you're a fellow male cosplayer following that, you just think to yourself, I'm thinking to myself, all right, I get what you're trying to do, but that I'm not going to like it because it's not for me. It, it, it's up to you whether or not you like that or if you don't like that. But the best words that you describe right now is sex does sell, and I I know that I will only gain as many followers if I keep changing my variety. But mate, I have what they got called a dad bod, and I am nothing but holding a keg in front of a six pack. So it's I'm not gonna get there. But I will say that the difference between male cosplayers and female cosplayers is female cosplayers will know what works for them, and male cosplayers are still figuring out what does. And that's the best way to put it, is we can only do so much until it gets to a point where it's no longer cosplay. Female cosplayers can do a lot more to a point before before it becomes something else besides cosplay.
And even when it goes beyond that, because it has, and let's not pretend here, when you're doing nude sets on Patreon in cosplay, that's no longer cosplay. Let's call a spade a spade. I'm not saying you can't do that, but we have to be realistic about it. Now you're entering what is called softcore porn. You're entering that. That's exactly what you're entering, and now I'm okay with that. I don't care, but that's not cosplay anymore. You've now entered a new sector where you've now entered
I
a situation between cosplay is here, porn's here, and this is somewhere in that gray area.
see. I guess it's one of those things where I'm not following anyone on Patreon or
Neither am
OnlyFans or
I.
anything like that, or like I follow some Twitch streamers and whatnot, but I haven't, like, for me it's one of those things, like as you said, there's like you got these levels of different strokes. I think it's best place that it comes down to is that if you're comfortable enough to do it, do it. I'm not stopping you from doing it.
I'm not stopping
If
anybody either. I love it.
if you feel as though it's crossing a line, but you still want to call it something else, then maybe you need to start thinking whether or not, oh, I've crossed the line here. I need to start calling this something else besides what it is, because I have seen a lot of cosplayers go from, yeah, I'm doing all these fancy cosplays and whatnot, and to now I'm doing all not like where I'm putting my effort behind my costume, where I'm making myself known for building this stuff, to now I'm only known for wearing underwear, or I'm only known for doing whatever I need to do. And I'm like, where did you blur the line there? Because you were talented before, you had this phenomenal following before, and now you don't. Like, now you think that you need to make sex sells. You didn't need to make that. You didn't need to do that. But if
So
you want to do it, then do it.
there,
But just
there's
remember,
there is two cosplayers that have gone in different directions, and they are both female cosplayers at the top of the game. One of them has
exactly.
a very prestigious company and does a little suggestive work, but not over the top. Gives a tease here and there. And the other now is pretty much everything she does. She has a clean set and she has a naughty set. And we both know who they are. I don't need
But
to
I
mention their
don't.
names. And
Yeah,
the
but I
only
don't
thing
think that.
the only thing you need to know is that my credit card and this cosplayer both don't float in water, and they're both full of money. That's all you need to know, and then everybody can make their own assumption on who that is. But please continue.
No, that's okay. Well, as I was going to say, like the, I think it comes down to the idea of like cosplayers for me, as people as we are now, we're becoming somebody that we want to become. If you see who you are in that character, you're becoming that character, and you're twisting it to yourself. It's as simple as that. I know that there's a form like there's LARPing where there's live action role playing where people become these characters for like months at a time and whatnot. But for me, when I see like high ranking high ranking both male and female cosplayers start doing suggestive like beyond that point, because it's not just women who are doing it, it's men too, and it's people who just want to be seen as more than just a cosplayer but as an object. And I'm there going, you can't, if you want to be seen as an object, you're losing that creativity behind why people were following you in the first place.
And
It's if you don't.
this is why we're doing this, because
Exactly.
the whole point of this is that for the next 8 of these, it's only guys. So we're doing 10 guys on the weekend who don't get attention, who have been overlooked, who are beyond talented, who are doing cosplay because they want to do it and they enjoy doing it, and they're doing it because they fucking love it. And it's time that got brought back into cosplay. This thing has been, and look, I'm a capitalist, I'm a greedy capitalist. I run a business, and I love it, and I'm obviously, I want to sell products to people who want my products, and I want them to be happy, and I want to be happy. There's nothing wrong
Exactly.
with that in society. There's nothing wrong with that, but at the same time, cosplay has become so corporate. It's become
Oh
corporate.
yeah.
It has become a business, and it has become over the top business, and it has become an obsession, and it's how many likes you get on Instagram. And that's a problem. We have people who are making like $100,000 on their Patreon sets from this, and that's great. And I'm glad that you're monetizing. But now it's become you're an object. I think that that's a really good way to put it. And it's not about dressing up as your favorite character. And by the way, that's not 95% of the cosplay community, but the 5% is being represented as that as the whole.
Ex- exactly. That's the best way to put it. Is you get 5% of people, like the 5% of what people see as cosplayers, compared to the other 95% who work their ass off, who do these things because they love them. They twist these characters because they want to twist them, but any way they
All
want.
they want is fun. The 95% is fun. It makes up the majority of the business. And I'll mention her name, Jessica Nigeri. The 95% is bigger than her as a cosplayer.
Yeah.
Yet, why is it that it's so reversed? The other way, where that's we're putting the 5% above the 95%. It makes no sense to me. And the word professional cosplayer should be eliminated.
Yeah, I think the word professional cosplayer does should be eliminated because
It's a
I've
toxic
like
word. It's a toxic word.
it is a very toxic word because it means that you're getting paid to either be an object and be seen as that object, or you're getting paid for pre-made costumes that you're dressing up in. I always felt the term cosplay meant you make it from your hands, you dress up in it, you become that character, no matter who you are, where you are, what you are, and you become that person regardless. But when you're termed as a professional cosplayer, oh, I make money because I do this, you're not a cosplayer anymore. You're somebody who's working as a mascot for this company. It's as simple as that. You're no longer a cosplayer, but a
I
mascot.
I have a different defining line. I always thought cosplay was meant for everyone and it was meant to be fun. And then when you put the word
Exactly.
professional in front of it, now what you're doing is you're saying there is a distinguishing factor and you're putting a higher standard on one thing versus something else. I'll give you an example. So we all know professional wrestlers. I have had a
Yes.
professional wrestlers on my podcast. They are professional people who have been trained in a ring, in a craft, and they wrestle for money for my entertainment. That is professional. You play professional baseball. That's a profession. Hence the idea called a professional wrestler. Nobody is a non-professional wrestler. Now, these people, somebody might be a professional wrestler and have a regular job, but they are professional, meaning that they act professional in the ring. They're trained professionally. And so there's a different standard associated with their
Exactly.
craft. And when you all of a sudden say, I'm a professional cosplayer, you're now distinguishing something that was fun, that is meant for everybody, and then you take it and you shift it around, and then you create a different standard. And I just think that
Exactly.
creates toxicity. I got no problem with people making money in it,
Yeah.
but when you use that word professional, I think it changes the game in many
Oh,
ways.
it completely does. It does put that very toxic environment in your head going, all right, if they're professional, what does that make me? Somebody who's amateur, someone who's not good enough to become that? Because cosplaying is all about everyone having fun, becoming what you want to be. It's not about getting paid to become this character and reach a certain level. Because cosplayers are all on the same level. You cannot be told, hey, you're a shitty cosplayer. Hey, you're a great cosplayer. Because then you're messing with the system. As you have said, professional cosplay, that is a toxic word.
Yeah. I think that is it's so fascinating because this is such a conversation that doesn't happen. And also, when you hear the words professional, it changes the way your brain functions. It changes the
Exactly.
way that things are done. I can mess with people's brains in a variety of methods. And the problem is that I'm going to get hit when I put this into a bunch of groups. I'm going to get hit. And what's crazy is that I feel that a bunch of these people, and the people who are going to hit me are all these people who are making money and deem themselves as professional, which is
Yeah.
crazy. And then all their fans are going to then come after me, and I know it, but they can't cancel me because I own this. I own this.
Exactly.
If you, and I'm going to say it right now, and I'm going to refer to them as 52 minutes into this interview that if you cancel me or try to, you're only canceling yourself from me. You're not canceling me because I own this. And that's the difference here is that I can have these conversations and do whatever I want with this show. And if you don't say I don't want to support you, great, you canceled yourself from me. And I don't want you if you have a problem with not having these conversations. Because
Exactly.
that's how I feel, and this is why I want to speak to more male cosplayers because I think it's a lot of bullshit, and I think it's been very much poisoned. And look, I like female cosplayers just as I like male cosplayers, but there also is when people become professional, they change their attitude, they have a different position, they treat people differently, they they
Exactly.
I got into a position when COVID hit and this person was wanting complaining about getting a paycheck and I'm a panelist. I've never been paid once at a con. And I've done 6 hours of lecturing at a con on a variety of topics. I was never paid. And I said publicly, and I got hit hard on this from a lot of people. And I said, now you know how it feels not to get paid. There are so many people, and 95% of the people doing anything at a con don't get paid. Now you guys know what it's like when you were scheduled to get a paycheck, not to get it. Welcome to the club. Maybe you should have more empathy now. And instead of saying, I'm with you, in which we should be uplifting, they decided to attack these professional
Exactly.
cosplayers, me. And I'm not going to name who it is because I'm not going to put somebody on blast, but that's
No.
exactly the attitude that exists.
And I feel like, yeah, that attitude that definitely comes from people getting paid to do what they like. They're getting, don't get me wrong, if they're getting paid to do what they love, then go ahead and do it. But if you're using the term professional, that means that you have to be a example of what someone wants to be and not a shun to what they want to be. And if you're that toxic if you're that toxic person where you see someone who's saying, "Oh, I'm professional at this," and then shuts you down because they want to be just like you, they're not professional anymore. And they frankly have just become this egocentric person who doesn't understand what it means.
I'll give you the quote. Do you know who CM Punk is in WWE?
Yeah,
You know who John Cena is in WWE?
yeah, yeah. Oh, who doesn't?
Do you know what I'm about to refer to? It's a very
Uh,
famous skit.
no, I don't, because I actually don't watch
CM
WWE,
Punk.
unfortunately.
So I think this is going to capture everything. John Cena is from Boston. CM Punk's from
Yes.
Chicago. CM Punk was leaving the company and his contract just got renewed at midnight at night, and he left with the WWE Championship. And they were going to have a match, and he said, I'm going to walk out at WWE with this champion, John, because you've become the dynasty. You've become the New York Yankees. And that's what I think is the problem. And it's an amazing moment in WWE, and I recommend everybody watching because that's exactly what's happening with some of these professionals in this
We'll
cosplay
put that
world.
in the link below.
I should find it. I'll put it in the comments. This thing because it's so relevant. Where what it is that a lot of these professionals have now become the New York Yankees. They have become the dynasty they said they didn't want to become, and
Exactly.
they haven't become the Boston Red Sox, which are the underdog. 100 years they didn't win a championship, and then they won the championship in 2004, and they are not the dynasty anymore. The New York Yankees is the dynasty in baseball. It's much like the Patriots are becoming a dynasty in football. So it's a lot of these people feel like have become what they have despised, and the very antithesis of cosplay.
No, that definitely. And I like when you have that certain reach in in cosplay. Like, I know that I may not have that many followers. I may still get them. I'm not one going, "Oh, you've got to come follow my page. Come follow my page. Come follow my page." I do what I do because I love to do it. I'm inspired by big cosplayers that I've seen who have earned that right and have reached that goal. And and when I see cosplayers who are huge, that are professional, and that have made a name for themselves, actually helping someone, then you have my respect. But when you are someone who has made it huge without earning it and unprofessional, who calls themselves professional, you are being that toxic person in this world here. And it's as simple as that.
Yeah, I like calling people out now. It's my new thing.
It's all good. It's all good, mate. I'm Australian. I call people out all the time.
I love calling people out. That's what this is part of. Definitely calling people out and making it crystal clear that I just think people need to be informed. And look, you know what it is? I'm also a free market where if people want that toxicity and they want to support these people regardless of what they are, and you're a guy and you're supporting somebody who's toxic because you're like staring at her tits and her ass. No, you can't score with her anyway, because whether she's married or you have what is, I guess, a dad body, or you're overweight, and I'm not making fun of anybody for that, because
No, no, no.
I'm not in great shape either, everybody. So, but I'm gonna call it like I see it, where you're gonna be fapping, so that's my point. Is exactly, if that's the only reason why you're supporting somebody, I mean, you got to really question your morale, and you also got to
Yeah,
question where you are in life. I'm not Grant
exactly.
Cardone, so I'm not going to go tell anybody to 10x their life. But maybe if you 10x your life, you maybe have a shot at that attractive cosplayer. Just saying. But anyhow,
Well,
this
yes, I like we went full deep dive into something else just then.
just going right a tangent into a tangent into a tangent. We're in the middle of Inception right there,
Yes, there we were.
and then
Which
we're gonna
one
jump
brings
to
in, mate?
Tenet in a minute. So don't worry, everybody. Yeah, and then we'll come full circle going through the Batman trilogy here. So clearly, like,
It was very clearly we were working. We Nolan that fine. It's all good.
we haven't even got into Memento yet, so don't worry about it. His first movie.
Okay. I don't want to remember Memento. I tell you that much.
Yeah. So, let's briefly touch upon Lord of the Rings with you, because let's get back to what we really should be talking about.
Talking
Avoiding
about
a tangent,
cosplay, like my
we just
yeah,
took like a 25-minute tangent into something completely different.
Well, we'll trim that and snip that out, mate. It's all good.
Oh, I'm totally leaving it in. It's live, and we're off to the races. This is what makes things so wonderful, so wonderful. No more edits. It's raw
No,
and it's meant to be.
that's
But
it.
let's talk about Lord of the Rings. I really don't know much about Lord of the Rings. I don't remember the movies. They were too long for me. The books were
Oh,
apparently not that long, apparently. I think it's like less than like 700 pages for all three. And if you throw the
pretty
Hobbit in there,
much.
it's like 900. But I got no time to read those books. So, your Lord of the Rings, I think it's Talion Ringwraith?
Yeah. So it's this one actually. This is actually from is Talion, and it's from the Shadows of Mordor game. So there's these games out there called Shadows of Mordor and Shadows of War. And so in the game itself, you play as a ranger named Talion who actually dies right at the beginning of the game. And he becomes this wraith where he can never die. He can always come back. And every time he does die by an orc or something else, they'll remember that they've killed him. So you keep coming back more deranged, more crazy and stuff like that. So it's actually so you get a lot of different armor sets in the Shadows of War game, and that was when I first realized, oh, I've got to do this Wraith armor set because he does a particular armor set where he's actually a ring Wraith from the movies. So I saw it and I was like, oh, I've got to do it. So I did it as best I could, and there was only so much I could reference from it because in the game itself they only show you about the top half of his body, so I had to guess the rest of his body, and I think I did okay from what I was doing. But that was my first experience actually working with EVA foam and actually using a heat gun and using proper contact cement to build it in and like bend it to what I needed to bend and how I needed to move, and that was my first concept of mobility mobility over over looking good. So it was my first concept where I was like, I've only had about 80% here, but I fucking love it and I want to show everyone that I've done this. So yeah.
And there's a lot of cool stuff with this. I'm going to briefly just mention some of it. You obviously got the shoulder armor, and up here, for everybody who wants to go on Instagram and find it, you got this part right here. You got this part right here. You obviously got a lot of fabric. You got a cloak in there, and a few other things and stuff that looks pretty cool with it.
Yeah.
So, front chest plate also. So, what was all that like? Really, just capturing a lot of those like little intricate details, and also though it being breathable because cosplay can be
Yeah.
hot, especially in the summer.
Oh yeah, because most of our conventions that we have here are during the summer or at the beginning of summer or at the end of summer. So the hottest time of the year, regardless. So you have to worry about whether or not your foam's going to melt off, yeah, and the glue's going to come apart halfway through a con or whatnot. But I will say that when I was using, it was my first time using contact cement. I was doing tutorials on, looking at tutorials on YouTube on how contact cement works with foam, what have I got to do, will it withstand these heats and whatnot. And then I was working on how I could bend EVA, how do I get these measurements right. So I spent a lot of the time where I was just in the mirror and I've just got the tape. I've got like my ruler here. I've got my ruler and I'm just like measuring from measuring. I'm just going, oh yeah, that works. And then I'd like hold it and I put my finger there. I'm like, oh, you know what? Yeah, 16 inches. I can make that work. So I was taking my best guesses. And then and when I was done with it and I put it on, oh my God, I may have been able to move. I may have been able to sit down in it. But fuck, I didn't realize how heavy EVA foam was because at the time I thought, oh, you know what? I'll be smart and I'll use a thick version of EVA foam and make it work for me. Nope, that didn't work at all. I ended up with being sweaty by the end of the day. I took off the armor to find out that my actual sweat had started peeling apart the foam in the seams within it, and I realized it may be heavy, it may be mobility, I may be able to actually move in it, but I need to start using thinner foam, because with every cosplay that I do, I find these flaws that I can make for my next cosplay and fix it up. And this was a great example of, all right, I've done these heavy moving pieces and they move and I can sit down, but it's too heavy. And now the sweat's getting to me. And now I'm starting to feel lightheaded, so I'm going to sit down. I take it off to see that half of it's coming off in the inside, like, all right, you know what? I know what I'm going to do for next time.
And so, what is that like for you to learn almost from failure? Because I learn from failure. By definition, it's the fastest way for me to learn. I also learn by other people's failures, and that sounds a little messed up. I know exactly how that sounds, but I
No,
see what
that's
doesn't work for other people, and then I don't do that. And I see what does work for other people, and then I try things, and if something doesn't work for me, and then you take both those feedback loops and you say, okay, if I do A, B, and C, and A and B didn't work for me, and C didn't work for them, D must be the answer. So, what is that like to have that personal experience where you went from something looking fucking awesome, the Green Lantern, to this one looking awesome, but being too heavy, but movable, to now dealing with something that's probably a little bit more movable, which was your Assassin's Creed Valhalla stuff?
yes. Like I realized, because as I don't know where I know this quote from, but it's a quote that I remember. Is like, with every failure that you or someone else takes, you will also gain the knowledge to overcome that failure. And I realized, while I was basically like I had failed at keeping it together properly, only to learn that I could make it easier, lighter, and more movable for my next costume. And as I started learning from my failures, it became an achievement where I like, all right, I know that I can't do it this time because that's not how it works. I know that it's going to fall apart halfway through. I know I could do it like this, but it's not going to look great. I can still make either one work. And then I can find the balance in between where I could use medium foam to make it look great and have that right balance. So as I said, like fail, learning some of these failures on the job as I'm walking around taking photos, realizing that the heaviness of the armor is getting to me. So what can I do next time? And like, it didn't help with the fabric that I had was one of the heaviest fabrics I've ever had on my head. So it kept pushing down on my neck the whole time. And I could only see people from the top of my eyes and like my chin. And then I had people bring me drinks. So I had to sit the straw underneath, and I'm like rocking back and forth like an idiot trying to get drinks. And I realized I need to start working out these failures because I can't just keep winging it. And I think that's the best way of this thing is I learned from my failures and stopped winging what I need to do.
Yeah, and then I think sort of the Assassin Creed was probably lighter because that was way more fabric oriented,
Yeah,
and
yeah. So
armor just in general I would imagine is more complicated. Anytime you have anything, even if you're wearing armor without a shirt and it's covering a good chunk of your arms, you know, and you're shirtless even, it's going to be probably putting weight on you because it does put weight on you. It affects your movement. In case you didn't know this, everybody, your arms move when you walk.
yeah,
Your arms walk too. Just because you don't think they don't doesn't mean. And if you don't believe me, go out and buy 20-pound dumbbells and walk a mile with your arms, and we'll see what happens.
I completely agree with that, because like the only one thing I always notice with my momentum is I walk very broadly and my arms swing a lot heavier. So I had to have the cut right down low on my arms, and And when I started making these costumes, they were up too high. So I'm there like looking like a chicken wing, just walking around people, and I have to consistently have this like, oh, I'm scary. Look at me, look, so it doesn't look weird.
And now, let's jump to Star Wars because we could see the Mandalorian behind you. We can't see the Boba Fett so much. It gets cut off in the middle.
When I twist it like that, get
That looks much better. That looks much better. But I think you could twist it back now, so you could be front and center. I think everybody's got an idea of how it looks. So let's talk about this because I don't know what came first, but I think we're gonna start with the Mandalorian.
Yes,
So
that came first.
what prompted that? Because obviously it's a popular show, people love it.
Oh yeah,
It's
definitely
done beautifully well. I've only seen half of it. I legitimately just have not had time. Everybody, if you've noticed how many interviews I do a week, you would understand that I am legitimately pushed beyond my limits here. But what prompted that cosplay to do?
Well, as I was always a big fan of the Mandalorian, like regardless, like I was always a big fan of the Mandalorian lore when it came, especially to like the Clone Wars stories from that anime 3D series. Plus, also like with Boba Fett, I've always been a big fan of the Fett. You can't go wrong with
Not
that.
talking about Boba Fett, goddammit.
But when it came to the Mandalorian, I absolutely fell in love with the series. And there was a incident, not an incident, where there was a photo on Instagram by the artist Boss Logic, and he does this version of the Mandalorian where it's got like a Death Stranding twist to it. And I just thought to myself, God, that is the best thing I have ever seen. Artwork. So I sent him a DM. I was like, hey, I absolutely love this. Could I turn this into a cosplay? And he just sent back a couple of words, for sure, with a prayer emoji. And I was like, yes, I got his blessing. So right now, so I started working on it. I was like, where can I go to find these templates? Where can I start working? How does the Mandalorian armor build and whatnot? So I found the free template for just a standard Mandalorian helmet, and it's on the website punishprop.com. I cannot give them more props. They've got so much there, and it was just phenomenal. And I just worked way down. I took out a printed copy of the photo. I put it up on my wall, and I just started circling out like, all right, I could do the armor like this. I can do the armor like that. I can do the chest piece like this. I can do the leg piece like that. And then I realized things had to change on it because that headpiece there isn't the same one that I have on my Instagram. On my Instagram, I actually have a smaller red piece, and in the video game, that's what the bad guys use. And the bad guys are basically bounty hunters themselves. So I thought, you know what, that's a great twist. I can use the bounty hunter of the bad guys scanners from Death Stranding, and put that on a bounty hunter like the Mandalorian, and it worked out perfect. And I had to go to like a toy store to find the egg that's on there. I had to find this girl's egg, and I was like, oh, that's actually kind of perfect. And I took out the toy, gave it away, kept the container, and I just started spraying it. And people were like, why do you have a girl's toy? I'm like, I need the container, not the toy. And I started working around with that, and I realized that the chest piece that I was using for my Mando, I need something that's gonna be at the top, and I need something that's gonna stick. So I took a little tip from America, and I bought myself a gridiron pads, the chest pads, and got rid of the shoulders on them, and I just had the pad itself. And I'm like, this is actually perfect.
You mean football?
This is great.
You mean football, right?
Yeah. Yes,
like American football.
Sorry, American football.
You know, we have the best sport. You know, it's a holiday on Sundays. No other country has a holiday on Sunday. America is a Christian country by definition. Just because we have freedom of religion doesn't mean we're not a Christian country. So there's a reason why football starts at 1 o'clock on Sunday.
Yes, very true.
There is a reason why. So everybody goes to church. Everybody says God's okay. God knows. Everybody in their prayers. All of a sudden, it says, "My team, God, fantasy football. Come on, God, you owe me.
No.
I just gave money to the church, God. You owe me this one." And then everybody goes home, has a few beers. They go and sin, and then they repeat on Monday night. But I digress. Getting back to Star Wars, please.
That's all good. It's all good. Oh, I wanted to hear that for so long. But going back on the Star Wars. So I used a football pad to and glued just a template chest that I had saw on top of it, and I just realized I started with one piece, and I'm like, I can work around it. So I started gluing the other pieces to it, and it came out. I couldn't be better with how it came out. I had people consistently stop me with how it went. The building itself, it took a good solid 3.5 months to build, and that was just painstaking hours, just right materials, references, like sourcing it out. Had to make sure that it was okay to like use like different properties and whatnot. But I figured if I'm using an artist rendering, I'm not breaking any violations. So, and the artist gave me permission from his rendering, so I was pretty happy because I know that it is a big. Star Wars is one of the biggest properties in the world right now, but I've always been a big fan of Hiroshima and Normus Reedus, and when they did the game Death Stranding, it was probably one of the best games I've ever played. So I knew that mixing these two together, I had to do it justice, and I think I did okay.
I'm pretty sure you're going to be fine by both of those properties. Because you're cosplaying. I think there's an unspoken rule where it's one of those things, and also I think it would be crazy if any of those properties went after a cosplayer. I think it would be insane, and I think it would be such a bad move from publicity.
I feel like it probably would be. And
if anything, it'd be like, oh, that's really cool. Like we're happy that people are cosplaying and building our characters out.
Definitely, and I think one of these best things is like when I started doing the Mandalorian, it opened my world up to like the company called Mandalorian Mercs or the
501 Legion.
Like because you've got like these different corporations that actually have like online stuff, and you can join as groups and whatnot. And I was just like, I've got to join all.
There's all these Star Wars groups out there, and they meet up at cons. On my other podcast, there was this cosplayer, and she is a pink stormtrooper, pink Boba Fett.
Oh yeah.
And she does a little subjective stuff, and she's into the kinky side of stuff, and she doesn't pretend. She's a cam model and she's a cosplayer.
Yeah.
And she's open and she's cool as fuck. But she's part of a Mando Merc group. And I think they have like 500 or 1,000 members. And sometimes they're at cons and they have like 200 members there. So it's a wild thing. So that's a question about the Mando stuff and the Boba Fett as well. We're gonna get to in a second. I mean, are you part of like any groups, even online? Not necessarily even at a con, but because that's a whole different world, completely.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I currently right now I am not, but I have put my applications in and just waiting for a response for the only group that's in Australia right now, and that's called the Sandhawks. And from what I've seen, it's just a phenomenal group. But when it comes to
with COVID, obviously everything's delayed, so membership is not the biggest concern right at the moment.
Exactly. So right now it's more I'm happily waiting patiently until I hear a response. As simple as that.
Now let's jump over to the Boba Fett, and you've had some fun with that. So not that one in particular, but you've done like a John Wick quick one. And that's not much effort, right? I mean,
no.
that's just fun. That's just fucking around, right?
Yeah,
Legitly, you put on like a
that
suit with a tie, and you put on a Boba Fett helmet. I'm not saying it wasn't work. That's not what I'm not saying here. But clearly, that's just fun Instagram shit.
yeah, exactly. And because when I did, because I bought the helmet because it was on special. It came from one of our stores called Zing. That's here, and that's basically just a pop culture store full of like different different pop cultures, different references, different things. Up they sell a lot of crazy stuff there, and I can't give them any more props to how much awesome stuff they have there. But they had the helmet on special. It was part of the Boba Fett Black series, and I
Why
absolutely
the fuck
loved it.
not? Why the fuck not?
Why
Right?
why the fuck not, right? And I get home and I put it on my cosplay table and I'm looking at it and I'm just there going, what can I do? And then I hear John Wick in the background. I'm like, yeah, fuck it, that could work. And I just decided, you know what, I'm gonna put on some comfy clothes, make myself look nice, and then I just grabbed the helmet for the sake of it and I put it on, and I was like, I went and looked in the mirror. I'm like, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna take some photos. Did not think I would get the reaction I did for it. People loved it. I got DMs from everyone just going, how did you come up with that concept? Oh my god, it's Boba Wick. I'm like, it's pretty easy.
It's classy. It's classy. You should have just done classy Boba Fett. That would have been great too. He walks in within a suit. He's all like going, and he's just saying, Vader's dead. He's at the funeral. Like, go up to a casket and take that photo and be like, I'm at the funeral. My first real employer. Paying respect. And then you just have the helmet of Vader on the casket.
You just walk away. It's fine. It's so good.
You just take a picture, and then like all you say is paying my respect to Vader, and like my first employer, like the guy who made me get revenge on that clone planet.
Oh, it destroyed. Oh, that'd be so good. On my next one that I want to do with my Bubba Wick is I actually want to be like behind an accountant's desk, and just like doing paperwork.
Just get a dog. Just get a dog, because that's what John Wick is all about.
Yeah.
I didn't think I was gonna like John Wick the first time I saw it. I was very, very, very glad I was wrong on that one. But I digress.
The first minute of the trailer is about a guy and a dog, and I just thought to myself, oh, it's Keanu Reeves in a rom-com about a dog. And then he dies, and I'm like, oh, damn. This is crazy.
but moving beyond that, and moving beyond John Wick and Boba Fett or Bubba Wick, and you have to do the casket now, because that's going to be pricelessly funny. Just in a suit, not even Bubba Wick, just Boba Fett paying respect at Vader's funeral. I'm telling you, it's going to be the best thing you're ever going to do.
I'll do it. I'll do it just for you, mate.
then make sure you get things printed and go to a con, and that's how you're gonna make your money right there. But
I'll throw out some eulogies and see if people work. So it's all good.
Just get eulogies printed on it. Different reminiscences of Vader. Like, yeah. See, look at this. We're on a podcast, and I'm already giving you a bunch of ideas how to make money. Isn't that something else for free?
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
So the last one I want to talk about is that Boba Fett night, because that thing is sick as fuck, and it's so cool. I've never seen anything like it. It actually caught my eye, and that's why I wanted to talk to you this entire time, because I'm like, oh shit, that's really cool. We got Boba Fett's helmet. Obviously, there's almost vents on it. So we got those holes that are not in his original helmet. We got, I guess a horn, sort of, or Taurus horns. I don't know. I think Taurus is a Pokemon, right?
Yeah.
And then one of them's broken. It's great.
Yes.
It's great. And then it's also got the armor, shoulders, chest plate, and then a lot of it is fabric down below, and it's almost royalish, if you will. It's got that royal purple right there.
Yeah, because my original reference photo, he had it like, because it was a rendering art that I had saw, because I was looking up medieval, because I was just typing in, because I was looking for medieval crossbows, and there was this guy um, holding it looked like a Star Wars. It looked like a Star Wars like a crossbow, like a Chewbacca gun. I'm like, oh, that is so cool. Someone's turned Chewbacca's weapon into like a old school crossbow. And then I clicked on it, and it came down, and there was the Boba Fett. There was Boba Fett Knight. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. This is just phenomenal. And when I noticed that he had the horn broken, I realized, oh, that's right, because Boba Fett only has the one antenna on one side, and that's why he's got the horn, and that's why I thought, you know what, this is actually gonna work. And so that was probably my most hardest project. I will say that it took me a lot less time to build than my Mando, but it did take me a lot more detailing, because I realized that this one wasn't about foam and this one wasn't about building armor. It was about actually crafting like leathered armor. It was about crafting like all these extra layers underneath it, all these extra layers above it. I had to craft. First time I had to make vintage boots. First time I had to use like fur particular and stuff. This is where I was getting my sewing machine out. This is where I was getting glue out. This is where I was just had to put all these extra details behind it. I had to make it look dirty, though it stayed clean. I had to make this thing look royal, but I had to make it look like it had been in a lot of fights. And it's probably one of the best things I've ever done, and one of the best things I'm proud of. I will say that. It's super light. It's made from medium material. It's breathable. It really is just phenomenal regardless, and I will say that.
I'm sure that we could spend an hour just talking about this build, and at some point we're going to do that. I would love to do that, both of those builds, and we're going to rehash both those builds because they're amazing.
Definitely.
One of my favorite things about this, though, is that I think this one, more than the Mando Merc one does, is it transcends Star Wars. It goes beyond just that Star Wars, and it's almost fantasy. And it almost goes into a position where now we're not in Star Wars anymore. And we could go along the lines of this idea where we could interpret it in a few ways. Obviously, we could just interpret it as a variant of Boba Fett. And I'm a comic guy. I love comic variants. Or we could say, what would it look like if we still had some technology, but we threw Boba Fett 400 years into the past? Or we threw Boba Fett into Lord of the Rings? What would this thing look like? And we gave everybody equal weapons per se of blasters in that, but what would it look like if this was the case? And so I think that that's something that is super, super fascinating with this. And what is that like for you to go beyond? And I don't want to say we're going Lord of the Rings and back to that cosplay, but this is sort of in that sector more, in my opinion. And I love it because, let's be realistic, Star Wars is fascinating and it's super awesome. And I love Star Wars Pop Funkos and memorabilia. I have Vader ice cubes, and they're cool. You know, when you're having your whiskey and you're drinking, and you have your Vader ice cube. You know, Dave Rubin has his stormtroopers. I got my Vader. You know,
yeah, definitely.
Vader's the way to go. I'm telling you, everybody, Vader's the way to go here. But this kind of goes along that line. I guess transcends, and it is a variation of Star Wars, and it's different. And let's be realistic, different's better at this point. And I love different because I don't like vanilla. Is my point.
Yeah. I think that's how I keep it as well. Like as you've seen, like with all my cosplays from beginning to now, I always seem to put a twist on what I can do, and I guess that's where I got my name, is my like my Twisted Cosplay and whatnot. Is I saw what I could do with this and how it would transcend being science fiction and move more into medieval fantasy. And I've never seen a combination, essentially, of both. I know there's probably stuff out there that is of both, but for me, something high like Star Wars, if you're bringing it back down to its basics and raws, what would it look like? What would you do to survive in that world if it was raw? And I feel as though, like how I did my Boba Fett is how he would see himself. Someone who's pristine, someone who's majestic, but he's not afraid to be in a fight. He's not afraid to throw down an axe. He's not afraid to like plunge you with a sword. He's somebody who gets business done regardless of if he was a bounty hunter in the future or if he was a bounty hunter back then. He will not change who he is, but he has to adapt who his armor is, essentially.
Right now, he's enjoying retirement.
Yeah. He's on right now. He's on my little mannequin. I've got my mannequins there, Alfred and Fred. So
he's still alive in Star Wars, in the Star Wars universe. Boba Fett is still alive.
He got retconned. I like it. He definitely did. He's meant to be in the Mandalorian as well. So I am looking forward to that.
He's still alive, and that's what's kind of nice about Boba Fett in many ways in this cosplay, just as a character. You know, a lot of other characters in Star Wars are dead or resurrected, and it's nice to still have a character that is alive and that still has some history that needs to be spoken about.
Yeah,
and is very cool. And Scotty Young has a very cool cover with Boba Fett. But I digress there. I almost bought it for $2,000, but that's a different discussion. I should have bought it.
Different day, different topic. I will say that.
but I digress, and I think we're going to table the cosplays there. And I am curious, though, because we talked about it a little bit, but I'm in America. A lot of people that listen to my show are in America, but I get people from all over the world. And so what is Australia looking like as far as COVID and pop culture? Because I don't know anything about this. The only thing I know about Australia is I bought a Pop Funko that supported the wildfires that took 6 months to get here. And it arrived perfectly, which is amazing. It arrived perfectly. It's a Pop Funko, and it's more perfect than something went 10 feet down the road from where I am, apparently on eBay. And so I don't know how that's even possible. But it arrived perfectly immaculate. It's a koala bear and a firefighter. It's the cutest, most adorable thing on the planet. And it arrives perfectly from Australia with no protection. No protection. Like, no cardboard box. Like, in a tiny little cardboard box. And I'm like, oh, man, this thing's going to be broken. Immaculate. So beyond that, that's the only thing I know about Australia. And they have Fosters.
All right. Let me correct you right there. You never drink Frosters in Australia. I will say that. If you ever go to a pub here and you go, hey, can I get a Foster's? They will tell you you're drinking piss. It's as simple as that. That is an American thing, unfortunately. And we don't throw shrimp on the barbie. I don't know where people come up with that. There's no such thing as shrimp on the barbie here. But with, like, as you were saying about, like, with the fires and stuff, we had them under control by March. And I think what was interesting is when COVID hit in, we only had a fraction, like a minuscule fraction of cases here, but that still put our government into lockdown. So every state that we got here went into lockdown. All jobs got shut down. Those who were essentially any unessential job was shut down until reopened, and all jobs that were essential stayed open. But we did keep a lot of distance here. So the state that I'm in right now is Queensland, and Queensland is known for being very strict when it comes to these rules. We've kicked cases in the butt to the point where we're down to maybe, I think it's only like 3 cases here in the entire state. And some other states that we have, like Victoria here, where they're just rampant with cases right now because essentially they're not following the social distancing protocols, or
And we are back in a new video, and we were just speaking about what's going on with COVID and everything in Australia. So if you're watching and the other video cut out, you know, clearly that there's a reason why. Apparently my internet has decided to act up. So what's going on with COVID right now?
All right. So did you want me to continue as to what I was saying
before? Yeah. Just pick up where you left off, and I'm not exactly sure where you left off. So clearly.
No, it's all good. So yeah, like I was saying before, Queensland, we do have a hold on it here. We've got little to no cases. Everything's going well because our minister for our state, she shut things down pretty much moment she knew there was going to be cases. We had a couple cross the border, but they're all quarantined. They're all better now and everything like that. Melbourne's going through a tough time. I will say that, like Victoria, because the borders down there and the minister down there, they didn't enact it fast enough. So that's the only state. Essentially, that's a cut-off state, and people are like, all right. So mainly of the cases are down there. So a lot of people aren't too worried. Here, it's going well. Most things are back to normal. A lot of the shops are back open. People are still keeping social distancing. People are still wearing masks. We're just taking every precaution we can, essentially. But big gatherings, anything more than 2,000 people or something like that, it's nothing but cancelled. Like a footy game here or a cricket game and whatnot, they're not cancelled, but the arenas and stuff will be empty. So people can still watch it from home and whatnot. Like, good example today, we got one of the biggest races that happens in Australia. It's called Bathurst. And that's on today, and that's kind of like our NASCAR essentially. But Bathurst is just that's one of our biggest races.
So to go off of that and to bring in the pop culture, to go off of that and bring in the pop culture element, how have cons been affected? Because I know there's a few cons that take place across Australia, and I would imagine that there's probably a major big one. And there's several smaller ones, and then I would imagine there's a few big ones in each area, province, state. I'm not exactly sure how Australia is divided up. So how
states?
States. So how has that been affected in that regard?
So every convention for this year onwards, for the last couple of months, have been cancelled. And it has been effectively hard because that's people who volunteer their time and jobs and whatnot, people who want that time off. They're not getting people who get that time off and whatnot will have nothing to do for the weekend or the week that the convention is happening. The main one that's been cancelled this year is our Supernova. And as I was saying earlier, previously, is that our Supernova is our biggest one here. That's basically our San Diego Comic-Cons here. You get crowds of up to about 5,000 people a day, all dressed up. You get celebrities here. We got panels. We got stalls. People who who pay to go to these conventions to earn money, to earn a living and whatnot. And now these conventions have been cancelled. It's throwing a lot of people out of array, and you get a lot of people who have been building up for November, because that was when our Supernova was meant to be, is in November. And you've got people who have been building up costume after costume after costume, ready to present it for the days that it was on, only to find out that it's been cancelled at the last minute. So what do we do? But now we have to wait till 2021. And especially when it comes to the pop culture, especially when it comes to different conventions that we've had, like smaller conventions, because our Comic-Con that we have here is actually a pretty small Comic-Con, and that's nothing compared to Supernova, and that one was cancelled. We've multiple different LARP groups and comic group, cosplay group conventions have been cancelled in regards for gatherings and whatnot. People can't do that anymore, and there's because every once a month on I can't remember the date, but I know it was once a month, is that cosplayers would do a cosplay walk through Brisbane City, just dressed up in their costume and having people stop them and whatnot, just for the sake of conventions. And now that's cancelled, and you get a lot of letdown from it. But it's a completely understandable fact as well, because people can't just go, hey, I'm pissed off that it's cancelled. Why is it cancelled? There's a legit reason. There's an epidemic, a pandemic that's happening right now, and it's affecting people in many different ways. So a lot of people that I know that are cosplayers who are looking forward to this following one coming up are left wondering what to do now, because they've got no further track or plans, because they would build a cosplay per convention, and now that this one's cancelled and they've got one done. Do they keep building, or do they perfect the one they've got? And it seems like a few of them are running around with their like headless chickens right now. They just don't know what they're
So,
doing.
to even go off of that, it seems that nobody knows in Australia, and nobody knows in the world in general, when things are going to be reopening, when things are going to be rehandled. So,
Yeah.
what do you feel needs to happen for cons to come back? What do you think it looks like? What do you
Well,
cons have to do to ensure that it's quote unquote appear safe? I use air quotations in the appear safe component because let's be realistic, cons were
yeah.
never truly safe, but COVID has proven that they are not safe and that we don't know what's going to happen. And the United States is handling it one way, South Korea has their own position, Sweden has another, and Australia has another. And it seems that different states in Australia appear to be having discrepancies on how it
Yeah.
should be handled. And I don't know who's right or wrong in this circumstance.
Yeah, well, that's it. But like here in Australia, the best way to put it is there is no right or wrong way of handling it. I think it's just the what we were given and how we need to handle it now. And like when it comes, as you were saying before, to make conventions safe, I always thought it was pretty simple and easy. Is you got to have it's you can have the convention going, you can have the people come in, but if you got people of groups in groups of more than two or three at a time, I reckon you need to register that before you buy the ticket. Hey, I'm going to be in a group. It's going to have this many people. Uh, what places can I go? What time can I be allocated to go through? Just to keep it safe, to make everyone happy. If you're following a time schedule between a convention from the moment you enter it to the moment you leave it, you're gonna be safe. But I think what comes down to it is you get people who will not follow a schedule. Because I know for a fact when I go to a convention or when I go to a con, you'll see people just sit down on the side and just have a talk with their mates while they're sitting on the floor playing games on their phone, dressed up in these costumes, wondering if people are going to come and ask them for photos. Maybe they need to change that up and actually say, hey, you can't sit there, you can't sit down. You need to either keep moving or leave. It's as simple as that.
It's complicated also because you never know what's going to be at a con, how much time you want to spend in the dealer's room, what panel you
Exactly.
want to go to because something might catch your eye at the con, or you might be speaking to somebody like me saying, "Oh yeah, I'm presenting this panel and that wasn't on your initial schedule," and then
Yeah,
if that happens, I've gotten 50 people in my room just by speaking to somebody in passing saying, "Oh man, I like your shirt. I'm doing such and such panel, in an hour. Maybe you should stop by." And so,
exactly. Like you can't account
chaos.
for you can't account for like spontaneity, spontaneous stuff. You can't account for these things. And essentially, the only way to really make a convention safe again is if you know what, like you can't be spontaneous in them anymore. Or if you're going to do that, if you're going to like do convention, maybe they need to do one side where the convention is people who are just going there to see the cosplayers, and maybe people who are there to be the cosplayers, and then you can just work it out differently. Uh,
I mean,
there's
I've heard a lot of solutions. I've heard spacing more tables. I've heard less attendance, rigorous schedules, eliminating panels because that's gonna eliminating tables, eliminating food because if somebody then comes in with $500 and then once their $500 is gone, they're not gonna stick around for much longer, in that regard.
exactly.
So I've heard a variety of solutions, and each of them presents a solution, but it presents five problems at the same
Ex-
time for five different
exactly.
people or for all the people involved. And so I've heard stuff, and then I've heard in Florida, people have gone to conventions and it's been handled a certain way, and that people are learning that it's really hard to be in a mask all the time and that it's exhausting, and so masks are a necessity. And I've heard a lot of different stuff, and then there's a whole nother problem that's coming on because the world economy is now somewhat shot.
Yeah,
We could talk
and
about
see
the
that's
yeah, that's the other thing too is that how much money is now going to be spent at a con when you're worrying about buying milk for your kid.
exactly. And see, that's the.
I think that's another thing too. Is I know for a fact Australia was announced into another recession a couple of weeks ago. So that means that our money and our dollar meanings have just dropped significantly. But the as you were saying before, how can you put the money towards doing this if you need to provide for something else? And I think it comes down to a bit of a balanced situation. If you know what you can do to survive, then you've got enough to make for a con, then go for it. If you can't, if you can't provide for that con, and you can't come up with a solution to make it safe for everyone, and the keep the money flowing with it, the economy going with it, then you need to find these solutions. I know there's probably like a good solution out there for it that we may not have heard
I
about
think
it.
it's going to take some trial and error by definition.
It is
And I think it's going to
definitely.
take a lot of experimentation, and I think that a lot of cons are going to have to try about 10 different solutions, and then one con's going to try a combination of all of them and figure it out. And I think it's coming.
Yeah.
And
I
so
will
so
say,
yeah.
yeah, no, I will say that that's probably because that's what they said they're going to be doing for our next supernova, which is in April of next year. So that's our next convention date, and unless it gets cancelled, that's our fingers crossed date. So that I'm going to be going every day to that one, dressed up in 1,000 fucking different costumes. Right?
And so on that note, because I am right now using my cell phone data to make this work,
Uh,
so I'm really bootstrapping this, everybody. Clearly, this is now the same interview, just apparently my internet decided to shoot out on me completely. So we're going to be wrapping this up, but I do want to give you an opportunity to promote yourself. So where can
yes.
people find you, even though this is going to be a bit more tricky to push out there now?
No, definitely, definitely. So everyone can find me on Instagram. My tag is Jezza Twisted Cosplay, and I make twisted versions of any and all characters. I also do commission works as well. So if you ever want me to make your props, I can always do that. And I will give out a big shout to Pop Anime Comics for this awesome pop podcast and this great discussion.
So, despite my internet going out, I've been saying this with everybody. Seriously, support indie people. Support your cosplayers. It's so crucial. Best way how to support Jezza Twisted Cosplay is to go follow him on Instagram, because that's where most of his stuff is. There's a bunch of other stuff, and I don't know if you have links up on your Instagram yet to your other sites and
Not
stuff.
not yet, not yet. But I am working on my website, and I'll have links up by the end of next week.
And one of the things is that Instagram is meant for cosplayers. It's meant for models. It's meant for people who work in visuals. It's meant for comics. And so, if you would like to see these cosplays, I think you got like 100 posts up there right now, around that number. I would like to
Uh,
say.
uh, I've got about 97 posts, I believe. Yeah.
So you could see all the cosplays we spoke about, and there's some really great photos on there, and you could see the detail. And that's how I did a bunch of the research for this. Is that you could go look up that Boba Fett Knight cosplay, and you could look up, the Lord of the Rings, and you could look up the Mandalorian Merc and mercenary stuff, and you could look up the Joker and the Green Lantern. You can actually see a lot of how this is built, all the props, and we didn't get to talk about half of what I want to talk about. So that's the
That's
best
a
place to look. And then secondly, obviously you're probably going to have some merch at some point, hopefully. But
Yeah,
for right,
definitely. I will. I'm getting some t-shirts printed out, so in the next week or so. So that's why I'm saying about the link. This actually was worked out perfect timing. So my link will come up with t-shirts and my promo. This is my first promo hat for it. So that's my Jezza Twisted Cosplay hat. I've been wearing it the whole time. So yeah.
and so therefore the best place to go is
Yeah.
Instagram. Support it. It's legitimately the best place to go. And there's no excuse because social media is free. And the only excuse you
Yeah.
have, and in
Exactly.
my case, technically I have this excuse, is if you don't have electricity or internet, and now I'm using my cell phone's personal data as a hotspot. So if
No,
I'm doing this for the interview, everybody, the least you can do is follow him on social media, Instagram, The link will be up, and then if you like what you see, comment, follow, heart, comment on stuff. It's free, guys. If I don't have internet and I still have electricity and I'm doing this on my personal data, so should you.
Appreciate that, guys.
I think that's a wrap.
That's a wrap.